to Exeter Public Library. My name is Julia Lanter, and I am the Assistant Director here at your lovely new library. How are you liking it? Well, we are very pleased that we can host our very first art exhibit in our new Godino wing. So I'm so happy all of you are here to join us and the Racial Unity team who have sponsored this lovely art and poetry exhibit that is on view all this month here at Exeter Public Library. I want to encourage all of you to really walk around, look at the art, read the poetry. I have to admit, we librarians, when it's a little quiet, take a walk around the corner and get inspired by all the artwork that was in the exhibit by so many people from very, very different ages. Was it 6 to 86?
Yes.
So 6 to 86, that is wonderful to see the art so strong in the Seacoast community, and also the wonderful Racial Unity team to see all of the great work that they're doing to help unite us in the Seacoast and work together as a community. So with that introduction, I want to introduce Ken with the Racial Unity team, and thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you for having us at the library. Appreciate that. Thank you. We have a program for you today. We're going to be hearing from some of the artists and poets that they'll be reading their poetry, and some of the artists will be explaining some of the artwork as well. As you know, the Racial Unity team has been around for 7 years. This is our 3rd year of having the Art and Poetry Challenge. And what we wanted to do when we started that event was reach out to the kids and adults, but more importantly, we wanted from that program to have a discussion about what they're doing. So the children would have, I'm sure, discussed that with you folks at home. And I know the kids need the help of either teachers or parents to explain some of the things. This year it was The Hill We Climb, Amanda Gorman's poetry. And the kids were asked to choose a line and either write poetry from it or create a piece of work, artwork. And the artwork is displayed in that this floor, all the way on the left there, along the wall. So if you haven't seen it yet, take a walk after this event and take a look at it. We also have some display up in the mezzanine over there, in the case up there, showcase up there. That's some ceramic this year. This year we got a lot of ceramic from Bow High School. They took the artwork, they took the poem, and they created ceramic work. So you should go take a look at some of what those young high schoolers did in Bow, New Hampshire. So enjoy the art. And what I want to do before I start is acknowledge the land we stand. It's a land acknowledgement, and land acknowledgement is a traditional custom dating back centuries for many Native communities and nations. For non-Indigenous communities, land acknowledgement is a powerful way of showing respect and honoring the Indigenous people of the land on which we live and have occupied. The event of the Art and Poetry Challenge program and exhibit takes place at the Exeter Public Library, located on Nadikana. Excuse the pronunciation, I'm learning Abenaki language, right? Which is the traditional ancestral homeland of the Abenaki, Pennacook, and Wabanaki peoples, past and present. We acknowledge and honor with gratitude the land and waterways and the Elnobak people who have stewarded Nadaniki throughout the generations. Nadaniki meaning our land. My name is Ken Mendes, and I chair the Board of Directors of the Racial Unity team, and I'm so happy to be here today. Our mission is to advance relationships among people of different racial identities, increase understanding, and reduce racial bias in our community. This is our 7th year of operation for the Racial Unity Team in New Hampshire, and we have come a long way in our walk to continue to assure New Hampshire is a welcoming state for all of its citizens. Working with our schools, our community leaders, the State Department of Education, the legislature, and our governor, which is part of the Education Committee that Pat, one of the board members, chairs, Root has made progress in advancing better understanding of diverse populations and helping to prepare the youth of our state to face the challenges of the future as they enter college, universities, and into the workforce. Today, I'm personally delighted to stand before you and inform you that our 3rd year of hosting the Art and Poetry, and despite COVID-19 and remote learning and teachers afraid to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, we received a total of 64 submissions from towns all over the state. I'd like to name some of these towns: Alton, Alston, Muskegon, Bow, Brentwood, Dover, East Kingston, Exeter, we have a whole bunch from Exeter, Greenland, Keene, Lebanon, Manchester, Moultonborough, Nelson, Newcastle, Newmarket, Plainstow, Rochester, and Stratham. And the age range of those submitting entries range from 6 years old to 86. Thank you all for submitting that. Thank you all for being here as part of this event, and thank you to those who submitted your artwork. It's on display, like I said, and I want to thank the Art and Poetry team. Nancy's here, Joe is here. There were several other. Did I miss somebody?
Bryn.
Oh yeah, Bryn, sorry. Bryn has been a workhorse as well. Thank you, Bryn. And there were several others, Sylvia Foster. We had an intern, Aaron Lucan, and also Kennebunk Savings had one of the employees support us on the Art and Poetry. I think I caught everybody. Yeah. So thank you again. And thank you to the Exeter Library for being here today. Next on the agenda is my wife, Joy, who has been by my side and really governs me in everything I do and say. Thank you, Joy.
How many of you, I'm just curious, how many of you actually watched the inauguration of President Biden and the poem that was given that day? So a lot of people heard it on that day. Wonderful, because that is the centerpiece of this year's Art and Poetry Challenge. And it's interesting because, of course, this was a political event, and there are some political messages within the poem. What I found interesting is nobody interpreted this poem in that fashion. We had a different focus, and that's where people's eyes were, was on that different focus. And so people were asked to choose a line or a few lines from that poem and as inspiration and create a piece of art or another poem. And so I went through and I have marked all of the lines that were actually used in the poem. I'm going to do a little visual. Because some people, sometimes one person used that line, or I had 7 use one line, 3 people, and I'm going to just have my finger in the air when I hit that line as I read the poem and let you know how many people use that particular line. So you will see where the inspiration really came from in this poem. So The Hill We Climb by Amanda Gorman. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find the light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We brave the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace, and the norms and notion of what just isn't always justice. And yet the dawn is ours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country and a time where a skinny black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting for one. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean that we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to form our union with purpose. To compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. And so we lift our gaze not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first, we must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so we could reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true, that even as we grieved, we grew, that even as we hurt, we hoped, that even as we tired, we tried, that we'll forever be tied together, victorious. Not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. So, while we once asked, how could we possibly prevail over catastrophe? Now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be, a country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted or by intimidation, because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens. But one thing is certain. If we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left. Every breath from my bronze-pounded chest, we will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. That is the promise to Glade, the hill we climb if only we dare. It's because being American is more than the pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy, and this effort very nearly succeeded. But while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith, we trust. For while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of just redemption. We feared at its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within it we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. We will rise from the golden hills of the West. We will rise from the windswept Northeast where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked South. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover. And every known nook of our nation and every corner called our country, our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade of flame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it. For there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it. The youngest was 6 years old, and that's Aria Simpson, and she's here with her mom. Okay. All right, so what line from the poem did you choose, and why did you do that?
For there is always light, only we're brave enough to see it, only we're brave enough to be it.
Okay, could you hear that? No. Okay.
even
Right,
longer
so
away.
there is always light if we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it. That's a wonderful line. And do you remember what you were feeling or thinking when you first read that line? What was that?
I chose that line because I thought the light was like the good, and even though sometimes things are dark and bad, there is always goodness, and we have to be brave, and we have to be the light and work together. It's like there's a shadow of bad, but the light is shining through the shadow. People can work together to be the light.
Wonderful, wonderful. What do you want people to feel when they look at your art?
I want people to feel like things are getting better, and that if everybody works together, we can make the world a better place where everybody can get treated fairly, even if they have brown skin. The background shows joy and happiness and hope springing out. The people in it are all different skin tones coming together. They are all different and they can all feel good.
Wow, talk about words of wisdom coming from you. Okay, so that was our elementary school second place winner. We also have the elementary school first place winner also came from Exeter, and her name is Avery Holtzapfel. Avery is in 4th grade at Lincoln Street School, and this is Avery's art, which you may have seen already in the gallery. So could you hold this up and show people while we're answering the questions? So Avery, okay. So what was the line that you chose?
I chose,
We lay down our
we
arms.
lay down our arms so we can reach down our arms to one another.
Right, we lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. And what did you think when you found out you won first place?
I felt very proud because my brother would win everything because he's better artist than I
She has a brother who's an artist.
And I just felt really happy and very engaged to do more and hope. And this is like a big thing in my life, so now I know like I'm not like always in the shadows. I can always like step out if I want to.
Okay, that's wonderful. So we have another contest coming up next year. Are you going to enter it? Okay, wonderful. All right, could you stay over there with Aria so you'll have your picture taken in a few minutes? And then we also, in our middle school, the second place art winner from middle school also came from Exeter, and it's Avery's sister Lila Holtzapfel. Hi, Lila. And this is Lila's work right here. If you would hold it up so people can talk while I ask you a few questions. Easy questions. Okay, so now Lila lives in Exeter. She is a 6th grader at St. Patrick Academy in Portsmouth. And what school were you going to when you made this art?
I was so I think I was like going.
What was your where did you go last year?
Oh,
Lincoln Street School. Okay, so officially you were Lincoln Street School.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to claim that. Right? Okay. And what was the line that you used?
If we merge mercy with might with right, then love becomes a legacy and will change its world.
And how do you reflect that in your picture? Could you explain that?
It's like I try to like interpret the line as much as I can, so it's like kind of just has like everything that it says in it. So like mercy is like in here, and then there's like might here, and then someone doing me right is here, and then birthright is there. So it's like the 4 like
main words that they say that like stand out the most. I kind of put it into my drawing.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, thank you, Lyra. Joanne, as I mentioned, we had some ties, and two of the third place winners in high school poetry are from Exeter. We had a poem called Violence in Silence by Izzy Kazart Olson. She lives in Exeter. She's a 9th grader at Exeter High School, and she used the line, "We've learned that quiet isn't always peace." You can read her poem in the gallery. And then the other third place winner is from Exeter High School, is Rachel Poulin. She lives in Brentwood and is a 10th grader at Exeter High. Rachel, could you come up here, please? So I'll ask the same question. What line did you, from the original poem, did you pull?
I chose Where Can You Find Light in a Never-Ending Shade.
Okay. And what do you want us to know about this poem?
So when I originally was writing this, we were going through COVID, as we still are now. We were just coming out of lockdown, which was a struggle for many with mental health issues, and so this poem is mostly about like my struggle personally and how to sort of like deal with it, overcome it, and so that people know that they're not alone.
Okay. And would you like to read it to us?
Sure.
Okay. And the title is The Desire.
Yes. Where can you find light in this never-ending shade? The clouds won't cover the sun indefinitely. They'll slowly shift past to permit the light to slip through and cast down on you. Where can we find light in this never-ending shade? Persevere through the fog to find the sun's face looking down on you with a blinding stare. Where can we find light in this never-ending shade? Search for the desirable. Never will you be able to see the light if you don't stand up and look. Where can we find light in this never-ending shade? When the bulb is cold and you're stuck in complete darkness, light a small spark, a match, to lead you back to the switch. Where can we find light in this never-ending shade? Once you've found light, cast down on your surroundings. Shine down, be a beacon that is sought for. Where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The shadows will diminish, but only if you force them. Let your eyes adjust to the absence of light and move from there. The light in this never-ending shade is in your hands.
Okay, high school poetry second place winners. We also had a tie. Annie Gorman wrote The Next Generation, and she lives in Stratham and is in 10th grade at Exeter High. Her line was, because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. And then we had our other second place winner was Hannah Rubin, who wrote We Prayed with Our Feet. Hannah is an 11th grade student at Phillips Exeter Academy, and she chose the line, we will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be. And I would really like to read this poem because I love it. She had quotes at the beginning of her poem, one from Frederick Douglass, the 19th century black abolitionist. Praying for freedom never did me any good till I started praying with my feet. And then in 1965, after the Selma to Montgomery March, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, upon returning, said, I felt my legs were praying. So this is her poem. We prayed with our feet on that day, linking arms, clasping hands, marching forwards as unflagging dreams lit the way to a distant prismatic future where smiles are smiles no matter the color. We prayed with our feet on that day as harsh sunlight blinded our eyes and billy clubs struck gasping faces as unflagging dreams lit the way. This is an unlawful assembly. You have to disperse. Mr. Major, can we have a word? We prayed with our feet that day. I've got nothing further to say. So we stood our ground, hearts beats quickening as unflagging dreams lit the way, and tears and blood splattered our vision, and cracking whips shattered our ears. We prayed with our feet on that day as unflagging dreams lit the way. Isn't that amazing? Yes. Okay, And our high school category first prize winner from Exeter, a poem called Heritage by Kaylee Chen. And Kaylee is an 11th grader at Exeter, Phillips Exeter Academy.
It's because being American is more than why we inherit. It's the past we stepped into and how we repair it.
Right. And what do you want us to know about this poem?
I think I went into writing this with the idea that change can sometimes feel isolating. There's a lot of beautiful poems that have been born out of the fact that, we have individual experiences in this country, but oftentimes these individual experiences can come together kind of like threads of a cloth and weave together and essentially form this one wave, this one movement. And so I really liked how Amanda Gorman conveyed that in her inaugural poem. I wanted to convey that as well within mine. And that's how the idea of heritage, something we inherited, was kind of born. It's well worn from our fathers. Cloth blood-stained, crimson and bruised blue, and endless flooding white. There are stories woven between frayed seams. There are lessons spelled out in bullet holes. There are promises and pledges that this is a nation with justice for all, that all men are created equal. Most of all, there are scars in these stars for each promise that lies, shattered in the yellowed pages of history. But we never allow there to be silence. We promise ourselves forward. And so we receive hand-me-downs tattered and torn from those who chose to sit at the front of the bus, cloth sagging, bursting with hopes and dreams that they had. We can never hope to fill these shoes, but still, we sit, and we step into them, and we march, we run. We promised ourselves forward, and so our descendants will receive hand-me-downs built and born out of the calluses on our feet, of the sweat that traces our brows, cloth threaded from the light that breaks over the summit when we ascend the hill that we climb, the light that we promised that they would see, the light that we were brave enough to be.
Our September exhibit, which was the opening, Hannah, the one who I just read, We Prayed with Our Feet, and Kaylee, their poems caught the attention of the New Hampshire Black Heritage Trail people. In fact, they've invited Hannah and Kaylee, along with another of our poets, Trayvon Cannon Bennett, a 9th grader from Manchester, to read their poems at events called Black Matter is Life, Poetry for Engagement and Overcoming, which will have professional poets, and they will be guest student poets to open the programs. And these are taking place on November 18th, December 15th, and January 20th. Now they're ticketed events, and they'll be held at the 3S Art Place in Portsmouth. So I just want to congratulate Kaylee, who isn't here for that. Yes, that was quite astounding to be in the program with these other very professional poets. I thought that was great. So we come to our adult poetry, and our first place winner for it.
Inaction and inertia. I am susceptible to couch potatoing, so it caught my attention right away, and seems to be an important thing to get rid of.
So how did your poem come to be?
Well, somebody at Riverwoods, where we live, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Said the Racial Unity team is putting out a challenge. Why don't you write something? And I took that as a compliment. And it didn't take me too long to get the idea. Sometimes when I try to write something, it goes through 7 drafts and it's an agony. This wasn't. And it started with the Civil War, and that's where the title comes from. After Appomattox. Appomattox was when the Civil War ended, as far as 2 armies fighting against each other. And I had read Professor Faust's story of the casualties. She wrote a whole book about the casualties in the Civil War, and they were horrendous. And as she pointed out, it was necessary to change the rituals for funerals because they didn't have DNA. And it was a lot, just slaughter on both sides. So that got me started. And then along came, I like to think of progress as linear, but this seems more cyclical. Reconstruction, and then reaction, and then civil rights, and then shooting, and one of the things that's different is that when there are shootings now, the people have names, and that may not seem to me, it seemed to be a big difference, but I think it is. The other thing that has been occurring to me quite regularly in the last few years is that there's courage is a rare commodity, and if there's any way of cultivating it, that's a good thing to do, but there's a line between courageousness and martyrdom. And some people go one way and some people the other. Some of the names are not people who got killed, but are people that I learned from so that I get caught up on what's going on.
So would you read the poem to us, please?
I will.
Thank you.
Their bodies keep coming. Medgar Evers, Emmett Till, Eric Garner, who was choked for selling cigarettes. Trayvon Martin, the unarmed boy shot while running away. The list is long. They all have names. They are all human beings. The issues are daunting. Bad air, schools and housing, wealth disparity, the myths justifying white privilege, suppressed voting, incarceration. We blanket it with the word systemic. The list is a four-dimensional matrix. Politics, economics, race, and time. And yet heroes keep showing up. Harriet Tubman, Douglass, Abraham Lincoln, Marian Anderson, Martin Luther King, Bobby Kay, LBJ, Coates, Michelle Alexander, Kendi, Henry Louis Gates, Abrams, Rogers Johnson, Warnock, and Amanda. Liz Cheney, paradoxically. DC Judge Amy Berman Jackson. She was the judge who said Trump's papers are allowed to go into evidence. Katie Hobbs, the long list of honest election workers. The issues are clear: white supremacy, racial equity, democracy, inaction and inertia. Were you there when it mattered? Was I? We will make the effort because it does matter.
Thank you.
And I really want to give them thanks. $3,200 was allocated for prize money, but we got $200 back. He said he didn't want to pay taxes. So thank you, John, appreciate it. And our sponsors, Kennybone Savings has been a very good sponsor of ours, has sponsored us for the last 2 years. We also have Cambridge Trust. They've sponsored us for 2 years as well. Exeter Hospital, Riverwoods is our sponsor, and New Hampshire Charitable Foundation. Without their money, none of this would have been possible. So thank you again for our sponsors. And if you feel like donating, go on our website, send us a check. We'd love to have that. 2022, we learned a lot from 2021. And one of the things we are trying to do better is correlate the timing with the school year. In the past, at the end of the school year, the kids submitted their poetry, and some of them had gone off to college and things like that. So we decided that we want to bring it forward. So we'll be making an announcement pretty soon about the topic. But I'll give you a secret, because we're testing the topic not only with children, but also with teachers, just to make sure that most of the schools talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have a pretty good idea what diversity is. We have a pretty good idea what inclusion is, but we struggle with the word equity, fairness, and all these other things. So we're working that topic into our new 2022 plan. So that's the secret. You can start early, but we want to test it with the teachers, make sure we have a good package enough so that now we are reaching kindergarten to adults. So we got to be able to do that well. So look forward to that. It should be coming out soon. And again, thank you so much for being here today. And thank you. And take some time to take a look at the artwork up there and around the corner. If it's not today, the library is open, regular hours. Go on the website, you'll find out. And invite your friends to come over and take a look at it as well. There's a good opportunity to see what our children are thinking about this very important topic about diversity, inclusion, and equity. Thank you very much.